Digital portfolios for educators is the topic for today's video, and we're going to take a look at utilizing these as a professional development strategy. We will look at about digital teaching portfolios, history, creation, and some examples. So let's jump in with about digital teaching portfolios. For those of you that are in education, did you ever create a huge teacher portfolio binder? You know, the one that took forever to collect all the perfect evidence to include and many hours searching for the right clip art to be able to create a coherent feel for your portfolio. Well, the digital portfolio takes this binder and puts it online. Have you ever created a portfolio? Answer by selecting the click here. And if you were asked today to create a professional portfolio binder, and this is just something to think about, what are 3 things that you would include? Do you have your 3 things? Okay, we're going to refer back to those in a few moments. So a digital portfolio is much more than just taking tons and tons of information and putting it online. The evidence that you have in your portfolio tells a story. And this is a strategy for not only teachers, but principals, administrators, and people outside of the teaching world. Also, you'll find thousands of examples online of teachers actually incorporating these in their classrooms for their students. And Learning Forward describes this as the best professional learning practice because of all that it encompasses. So it's relevant, it's embedded in practice, action-oriented. It engages the educators not only with the collection, but actually the use of the data. Another thing is that it's very reflective. There's feedback. So there's you're constantly going in that learning cycle. Now, some challenges would include time, technology, and culture. So what kind of process could be used for maybe a school that wanted to incorporate portfolios for their teachers and administrators? Well, one thing is you have to have a vision of what in the world an effective educator is. Like, what do they look like? What makes them an effective educator? And then what evidence could be used to demonstrate or to show that vision? And how would the educators that were building these portfolios receive feedback? So once these have been answered or established, then the educator would work on clarifying their vision, collecting evidence and selecting the best items from that evidence, reflect on their work, and end up with feedback and review time. So how do you organize these portfolios? Well, honestly, it's drastically varies. So I just included a few examples. So with teachers, a lot of times, or even pre-service students, a lot of times they'll use the Danielson framework. Another option is to focus on particular standards, or maybe the school has a school-wide project or focus, and elements from that project would help to organize the binder. Okay, remember your 3 things? Well, are your 3 things on this list? You'll notice that there's a lot of options for evidence to collect, and this isn't even all of it. I mean, these are just a few examples. So hopefully you find at least one of your 3 on here, and then you have an even longer list because you have more than what was included on the your thought for 3 items that you would include in a paper binder. One of the nice things about the digital binder is the fact that you can incorporate videos and things that are a little bit more interactive. Now we're going to take a look at the history of portfolios, and you'll notice I didn't use the word digital this time, and that is because we're starting way back before we had technology like we do now. So in the early 70s, Canadian Association of University Teachers, they began an initiative to expand their professors' evaluation. And they didn't want it just to rely on student evaluations. And that's when they came up with a teaching portfolio. Now, in 73 was the first time that it was actually articulated as an idea during a public lecture. And then later in the 70s, it began to be more of an international focus where more people were learning about it. It wasn't quite a buzzword yet, but it was getting there. And then in the 80s, it was included in a book, Successful Evaluation Programs. And so that built a little bit more of a stamina for it. By the mid to late 80s, a lot of universities around the United States added portfolio-based programs. Now, the digital aspect was here in the early 90s. So with the World Wide Web, we received the opportunity for e-portfolios, which is the same thing as a digital portfolio. And you were able to put this portfolio online, but it did require knowing how to code or purchasing software that you could build, like Front Page, build a website, but then you would still have to know how to get that website online. So there were some steps that you would have to take, but it did begin the process of bringing the binder online. And then by 2000, that was the explosion of Web 2.0. So there were tons of resources online. Most of them were free. And these digital tools didn't only help you to publish the content, but actually to create it. So blogs and wikis and various options such as that were available. So speaking of creation, what are some things that you could use to create your digital portfolio? Well, honestly, there's so many options that I had to just narrow it down, but here are a few examples. If you feel comfortable with PowerPoint, then you would be able to utilize Google Slides. And both Google Slides and PowerPoint have the option to publish. So if you create it where it is similar to a portfolio using, say, a template, then you could have your portfolio online just utilizing Slides or PowerPoint. Another option, there's a ton of ways to build websites nowadays. So Google Sites, Weebly, and WordPress are three options. And the WordPress that I'm referencing isn't the .com. It's actually the one that is incorporated in GoDaddy, HostGator, and those sorts of things. Building a blog is a very easy way, and each blog post is actually an element of your digital portfolio. Adobe Spark, Live Binders, Padlet, and ThingLink are all examples. So what I would like for you to do now is to actually look at some of those examples, and then if you will follow this link, it will take you to our collaborative Jamboard. And there I would like for you to answer, if you were asked to create a professional digital portfolio, which web tool would you try first and why? I'm excited to read your responses and chat with y'all on the collaborative jam. So now we'll finish up with examples. So what are some examples of digital teaching portfolios? We're going to just take a look at three of them, and the first two are more like a website. So the first one is like a huge website, and then the second one is a little bit smaller. The third one is if you wanted like a single page portfolio, and it's using something called ThingLink. So let's get started by looking at Gretchen's elementary teacher portfolio. So you'll notice that there's several items along the nav bar. These are similar to the tabs that you would have found in the paper binder. And on the home page is where she lists each one of the items, and you'll notice as I scroll, it's highlighting. So you are able to click on these or just scroll through all of it. One thing that's really neat about a digital portfolio is you're able to embed links to different PDFs. You'll notice that she has embedded videos. So you get a great picture by going through all the different items. Next is a consultant portfolio. So he does teach, but he is a speaker and consultant. So we're going to take a look at that one next. So for this particular website, you'll notice that he has broken it down into 5 sections. And I'm on his page that is his teaching portfolio. So he goes through his philosophy, thoughts and reflections on pedagogy. He's also able to link to particular blog posts and presentations. So there's a variety of information included here. Now remember when we said that the digital portfolio tells a story? Because Paul Brown has many hats, he has made it to where you can look at the story you wish to. So if I go to his about, you'll notice that he has it broken down into his different hats. So I'm on his teaching portfolio, but if someone was an author, then they could do something similar. So he has it where you can select which story you wish to read. The last example is a comprehensive portfolio, which is a requirement as part of the doctorate in ed leadership. And I used a tool called ThingLink, and there is a tutorial available on our Hub website for this tool. So we're going to take a look at it next. This portfolio is set up by standards. So F1 is a foundation course that had standards that you were to meet. This is the standard, and this is the evidence for that particular standard, and I have one of them embedded. I basically just created a graphic, uploaded it to ThingLink, or you don't have to create the graphic, you can find one that's already created, and then I used these hotspots to be able to pull up a page where I had embedded all of the information. So this is just an example of a single page portfolio. I hope that you have enjoyed this presentation, and to finish up, if you would follow the link to our exit ticket, I would love to hear back from you on what you previously thought and what you now think about digital portfolios or portfolios in general. You do not have to sign up. You can simply just type your name and then the question will appear and you can fill out the information and submit it. Thanks so much for joining for the digital portfolio video.